Have you ever wondered why some people are practically invisible online, refusing to post selfies, life updates, or achievements? Here are 6 reasons explained by some very simple psychology. 1. Privacy over popularity. Psychologists say that people who rarely post photos often have a high privacy orientation. This means they value having control over what others see and think about them. They aren't necessarily antisocial. They are simply protecting their mental space. While most people seek validation through likes and comments, they rely on self-validation. They don't need to broadcast their lives to feel good about them. This is a subtle sign of internal security. They set up, quote, boundaries that prevent strangers from consuming their personal history. They prioritize, quote, intrinsic motivation over external rewards like dopamine hits from notifications. They understand that privacy is a form of power in an, quote, attention economy. 2. The nuances of self-awareness. We also have to admit this behavior doesn't always stem from confidence, as it can come from avoidance motivation. For a large segment of the population, not posting is linked to social anxiety or body image issues. This group experiences the, quote, spotlight effect, where they overestimate how harshly others judge their appearance. They avoid posting not because they're above it all, but because the pressure of, quote-unquote, perfectionism is too exhausting. They fear their real lives don't measure up to the platform's curated, quote, aesthetic. However, research on self-concept clarity shows that those who share less often have a stronger sense of who they are offline. They know their values, their goals, and what truly matters to them without needing, quote, external approval. This makes them less likely to chase trends or compare themselves to others. Their happiness isn't contingent on how people react, because it comes from within. 3. Emotional security and the validation trap. Posting less is often linked to secure self-esteem, a type of confidence that doesn't need attention to survive. They don't post selfies to prove their worth because they already feel whole. Psychologists say people with this emotional equilibrium are often less anxious, less, quote, approval-seeking, and more focused on real-world goals. There's a stark difference between, quote-unquote, narcissism and healthy self-esteem. Narcissists require constant, quote, narcissistic supply through likes and comments to regulate their egos. Secure individuals find fulfillment from autotelic activities, which are experiences done for their own sake. They don't view their friends or followers as an, quote, audience that needs to be entertained. 4. Deep thinkers and the observer effect. People who stay quiet online are often introverted and reflective. They think before they speak, and they only post when they have something genuinely important to say. This comes from a cognitive trait known as an internal locus of evaluation, meaning they judge themselves by their own standards, not others. They prefer authentic conversations over superficial interactions. Furthermore, they are resisting the observer effect, which posits that the act of observing or recording an event changes the event itself. By not pulling out their phones to film, they maintain a state of mindfulness. They engage in active participation rather than passive documentation. They avoid the cognitive load required to edit, filter, and caption a moment, and instead, they simply live in it. 5. Security, savviness, and digital hygiene. Many people who don't post are simply practicing a high level of, quote, digital hygiene and foresight. With the rise of, quote, artificial intelligence and data mining, these individuals are hyper-aware of their, quote, digital footprint. They refuse to feed their biometric data to, quote, algorithms that could be misused. They protect themselves and their families from, quote, cyberstalking by limiting the availability of information. They understand that once data is uploaded to a, quote, server, they lose ownership of their own image. This isn't paranoia, it's a calculated risk management strategy. 6. Understanding the digital illusion. Many of them know how easily social media can distort reality. Psychologists call this social comparison theory, where people constantly measure their worth against other people's highlight reels. By keeping a low profile, they protect their mental health from that endless comparison spiral. They choose peace over performance. They recognize that social media feeds are a, quote, curated reality, not objective truth. They refuse to compete in a game where the metrics are quote-unquote vanity metrics instead of substance. They avoid the quote-unquote hedonic treadmill, where one achievement only leads to the need for the next post. So the next time you notice someone isn't posting photos of themselves, don't assume they're shy, boring, or antisocial. They might just be more grounded, emotionally intelligent, and self-aware than most people online. They don't need to be seen to feel validated, and that's true confidence. If you want to explore more fascinating topics others are too afraid to touch, hit that subscribe button now. And if you're already subscribed, welcome home.